And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. And part of figuring out that next step is knowing what you want to run. And so while we've been doing this podcast for nearly 3 years, or just over 3 years now, 4 years, I can't do math.
What is math?
About a year ago, we started doing these race spotlight series, and they've been very well received. And so who better to find out whether a race is right for you than the race director themselves? So Jeff, tell us what we're getting into.
Sidebar, October 2024, before you were 4 years, I think. Okay.
All right.
Today's race that we are going to be focusing on is called In the Heat of the Night 100K. And the loop course taking place in the Talladega Forest in Anniston, Alabama. Talladega Nights, right? For the 100K, runners will that's right. For the 100K, runners will complete 4 of roughly 15 plus mile loops on a surface of dirt and gravel forest road. But as the name implies, what sets this 100K apart from other races that it will take place at nighttime in August, in the heat of the night in Alabama. Runners are going to have 18 hours to complete the 100K, and the elevation gain is a little over 7,900 feet, which is roughly around 2,000 feet per loop. So let's learn a little bit more about this race from the race director, Becki Jones. So Becki, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Becki, we're so excited to talk about this race. So it's unique, obviously, right? Middle of summer, it's at night. People are either going to love that or they're going to be like, oh my gosh, night, right? And so there's a lot that we want to talk about. Obviously in this, for anybody that's watching, we have you in mind, right? The whole purpose of this is so that if you're thinking about running this race, how do you be successful? What do you need to know? So we're going to get into that stuff. But Becki, one of the things that we like to ask up front as race directors ourselves, we identify with this. What is your favorite part about this race?
Okay. So my initial thought was obviously the runners. Everyone says that though, right? Like, obviously I put these on for the runners. So let's go back. Alabama didn't have a 100K race at all. I searched on Run Sign Up. I searched on Ultra Sign Up. No one has said anything. So I'm like, let's do it, right? First 100K in Alabama.
Wow.
That has now set the precedence. And there are 2 more since I started 2 years ago. This will be 3 years. Also, there's not many night races. So if you want to be able to train for those 100 milers in the fall, I mean, this is your race. It gets you ready with the aid stations. It's got the night portion because everyone hates running in the middle of the night on their own. I've got a race for you. Come, it's the perfect training race for those 100 milers, those 250s, whatever your heart desires. But honestly, 100K, being the first in Alabama, that's my favorite part.
That's fantastic. So I actually read that on the website, and when I read it, the next sentence said something about what's better than that than the first one at night. And so I read this thinking, oh, so they did the first 100K at night. I didn't realize this would be first 100K in Alabama, period.
It is. Yeah. I took both. I took the night and 100K.
That's pretty legit.
And it started 3 years ago?
Yes. August will be 3 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
Alabama, people of Alabama, you've been running ultras a little bit longer than this. But this to be the first, just a few years ago, Becki, thank you for bringing them up to speed.
Yes. You're welcome, world.
We need to contact Davy Crockett, History of Ultra Running, and get that put out. So we talked a little bit about the course, but I'm going to ask you some specifics about it. But just give us kind of, we heard 3 years ago, or it's coming up on the 3rd year. Give us a rundown of what the course is. Somebody's going to show up, like, what can they just expect from kind of the big overview?
Okay, so start finish is obviously in 1 point. You're going to go out, it's going to be like a lollipop course. You're going to go up to about 3 miles and go around a 10-mile loop. In the 10-mile loop, you're going to have 3 aid stations, and it's about 2.5 miles to the first aid station, another 2.5 to the first major aid station. So your first is just a water stop. Second aid station is going to be your full, usually Zombie Trail Races is sitting there. They're awesome. And so they put on a great show for everyone. And then you've got 4.5 miles to another aid station, or not going to be another full aid station. So you come back 2.5 miles to the water, and then you come back another 2.5 to at the start finish line. It is strictly dirt and gravel. And I think a lot of people don't expect as many rocks as there are, but it's a gravel dirt road. I mean, sometimes, the first year I had it, they actually graded right before the race, and it brought up all these rocks, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, do we start like 2.5 miles up where it's less rocky? I mean, it just, every year there's something that stresses me out right before the race, but that's what they can expect. A dirt gravel road. There are no roots. There are no trees in the middle of the road. You can pretty much zone out and just run 15.5 mile loop.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So we actually just ran a technical trail race over the weekend. So I was going to say, so when I watched video, I went and watched, like a race recap. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a big, wide road. And flat. When I say flat, I mean not technical, right? Like you said.
Right.
And so
it's not flat. Don't say that.
Yeah, right. That's what I was going to say. Flat, not elevation. Flat, as in I'm not tripping on route.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's no giant hole. There's no giant potholes or anything like that.
Right. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, hey, I'm running at night. I don't want to do the technical thing at night. This is a great course. It actually reminded me a lot of Umstead. I don't know if it's exactly like that, but kind of nice, wide, flat road. Right. And so I think from that aspect, I'm not going to say it's easy, obviously, but from that aspect, at least you can kind of know what to expect. Now, we've already said this is at night. It's a 6 p.m. start, which probably has its own challenges if somebody starts to think about like, okay, how do I show up rested? What does that look like? What are some things that you think people may underestimate about this race?
They underestimate the humidity and how hot it's going to be. And so I think they think because it's at night, they don't have to drink enough. They don't have to take in the electrolytes that they do during the day. And that's completely wrong. I mean, you have to have an electrolyte plan at this race. If not, you're going down. I mean, that's really our only DNFs are because people just aren't taking enough electrolytes. I mean, they gravely underestimate that.
All right. So talk to somebody listening. They just called you up and they're like, hey, I'm coming out. I heard I need electrolytes. Like, what is my 2-minute plan? Well, like, how do I need to show up for this thing?
A 2-minute plan. Like, you're just going to show up and, okay. I mean, you have to have either a vest or a handheld water bottle on you. I'm not going to let you go a whole loop without having something in your hand, or you have to have water or electrolytes. I do provide tailwind at all the aid stations. And goo gels and the goo electrolyte capsule. So if you don't bring any on your own, I do have those. It's still not a solid plan. I think you need to go into a race like this with a plan of how much you're going to have every hour, just because it's going to go south really fast. It's really hot and humid out there.
Yeah. And I think on that point, I think having a plan for race day is one thing, but also planning for a race like this that's going to be in the heat is critical. I think understanding that to have a plan for your hydration, you need to practice. You need to know what your hydration needs are in hot weather. So you can do a sweat test. You can do any of that kind of testing on your own. And I would recommend anybody that type of stuff. And I think you're right. If you come in without carrying a water bottle or a hydration pack, you with the race director are not going to allow them to continue on. They would be an idiot to not do something like that anyway in a race like this. So I think it's a great rule, if you will, to have that. But I also think for somebody who wants to be successful in this type of race, then they should plan with that in mind and to know how to practice their hydration and what it needs to be.
I do also offer 2 preview races that are at the same time as the race. So we start at 6 p.m. We do the whole 25K loop. That just gives them an idea of what they're up against, what their electrolyte plan should be, how hot it's going to be just for one loop. So I do offer that. I put that on the Facebook page and I send it out. I think it's written in the confirmation email when they sign up.
Oh, so for runners who've registered for the race, you do like a pre-race, a preview race day, if you will, on a different day of the week or different day of the month or something like that. How far in advance of race day is that?
I do one in June and one in July. This year it's going to be June 29th and July 13th.
Fantastic.
It's nice and hot. That's what I was wondering is different condition. So yeah, so if you're thinking about doing it and you have the ability to get there, I highly recommend. And we've always heard so many good things about people just being able to get out on a course, period. But for you to be able to do that to kind of replicate the conditions, I think would be a huge benefit to people.
So if I lived in Alabama in that area, would I be able to come to one of those preview days without having registered, or is it only for registered runners?
Nope, anybody can come. So if you're thinking about coming and you want to run it, or you want to run it and have friends that you want to bring, I mean, anyone's welcome. I set up water at the aid stations that would be during the course. So I do offer water at the aid stations, but yeah, anyone can come.
Fantastic. That's really good to do that. So if we could, let's go back to the aid station conversation a little bit. You mentioned that at the main aid station, not at the start, but in the middle of the lollipop, if you will. It is run by the Zombie Trail team, or Zombie Trail races. And you said they kind of go all out. Can you describe what that means?
So they're they're a party in a box, honestly. So if you are feeling low, they're going to lift your spirits. I mean, they get out the music, they've got the lights, they have the full spread of food, and they're really good guys.
That's awesome. What kind of food do they typically serve? Or any of your main aid stations?
Typical aid station stuff, grilled cheese, soups. Last year I had pizza. We'll do quesadillas. I know the Birmingham Ultra Trail Society, they did bacon wrap something last year. So they always do something special. I just give them a list to go on and give them money, and they go and buy whatever they want. So It changes from year to year, but pretty much the normal fanfare aid station stuff. I do also offer vegan options at every aid station. I think it's really important that we have that for them too. So I have, vegan cheese and beans and all that stuff for them.
So I'm going to ask a question that, because as race directors, Jeremy mentioned in the beginning, we also host race, and ours are offered in April and September generally, and it can be warm for those. Not nearly as warm as Alabama in August. I'm not going to pretend. We don't really have power supplies other than a generator. I'm assuming you don't have any other than generators as well in the forest. And so what do you do about ice? Because I'm assuming every runner, when they come through, is asking you for ice.
Yeah. Surprisingly, we've never had to do an ice run. I let the aid stations get their own ice, and then I get a crap ton of ice, and we've never, ever ran out. Knock on wood. We also do popsicles and things like that. So we'll offer that at the start finish aid station for them. But yeah, we have never ran out, and we've never ran out of water. So, cause there's no water supply up there either. So we would have to drive, 15 minutes in the town just to resupply water. It's nuts.
Well, so that's
You've
good.
jinxed me now.
I mean, I know this pressure.
But that's good for anybody that's listening. So obviously we talked about hydration plan. We know it's going to be hot, but it sounds like the resources are there in terms of. In fact, that's when I watched the race, it was a girl and she was saying, I actually didn't realize how hot I was getting, and I asked for some ice, and it was like just a lifesaver, right? And so I would assume that that's a big part of what you guys do. But let me ask this: so it sounds like you've got aid stations pretty close together. Sounds like it's easy to crew. You've got pacers. What does the main area look like? And then as far as if a family comes or pacers, how accessible is the rest of the course, or is it mainly just at kind of the home station?
Okay. I had actually someone email me today about this. So at the start finish, obviously it's on just a long dirt road. It's not a huge space, but it's enough for our 3 or 4 canopies with tables. And then we have a, little finish line chute. And then there's a road across from our aid station where people can park and they can use their cars as aid stations if they want. So we've had people camp overnight there. They'll set up, little truck canopies. And then right before, when you're coming down the road towards us, on either side of the road, I allow them to set up their own personal aid station. So they can have a tent, they can have a canopy, they can have tables and chairs. So all their families welcome there. I mean, I don't turn anyone away. The only thing is I don't let them drive on the course. We don't close the road necessarily. The forest won't let us. But if cars come up, I'm like, no, you're not going. We're closed. But it's a pretty big area, and At night, it does get pretty cold, surprisingly, in August. So we'll have a big bonfire going there, and it's enough room for a ton of people and canopies and tents, and they can camp out. So it's really accessible.
My brain is not registering that it gets cold there.
It does. It gets freezing. I have pictures wrapped in a down blanket and beanie.
So it's
I
hot.
mean, for me, I'm just sitting there.
So it's hot at the start and it gets cold at night.
Yeah. I mean, for us sitting there, if I'm running, I'm sure I'm not going to be cold. But if I'm just standing there, I freeze it. Yeah, it gets really cold.
It's interesting though, because even from the stuff that I watched, it seemed like overheating would be the biggest risk. But as we've seen in especially bigger temperature swings, if you're not good with your electrolytes or your calories, and you're short on that stuff, and then the temperature drops, that can be another big kind of risk, right?
And if you're slowing down, I mean, the assumption is that you're going to stay warm if you're running. But if you are running 100K and you're not able to run for 62 miles, then perhaps you're going to walk at certain points, and your heart rate's going to come down, your body temperature come down, and you've been sweating all day. If you haven't changed clothes and put dry clothes on, you are going to be cold.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be like 40 degrees.
We had a bonfire. I'm thinking it's in freezing.
I mean, I'm originally from California, so yes, I get cold really easily.
There you go. Now we know.
That's why we're friends.
But this is why we're learning.
So that's great. Okay. So it sounds like easily accessible for crew at the beginning. And from what I just understood though, but like, if I was running it, my wife's not going to meet me at the middle aid station, right? It sounds like that part is closed off in terms of.
No, I mean, so the only part I don't let family and crew is at the water aid station. I mean, it's almost 3 miles from the start finish. Like that's just dumb. But at both of the, as if you guys know, of course, so you've got the long circle, right? So the aid stations are literally across from each other. So you're just running. So if those crew and family can get there, they have to go around, and it's kind of far. So,
okay. So it's accessible via car or just around.
It is. Yeah.
Got
It just is a little bit longer.
Yeah, but through other access roads than the course itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Good to know. That way, if I forget my bottle and I call halfway and I'm like, I need you to bring me.
Yeah. We also have a roaming bicycle who carries a backpack full of beer and stuff like that. But if you forget something, we can have him transported to you if your crew can't make it to this access point.
And the beer guy on the bike. Why wouldn't that be the thing? So, all right. So give us a quick overview of how many runners can you have on the course? And then what does registration look like? Is there a risk of selling out, those types of items?
So the first year I didn't sell out. I think 100 and I maybe capped it at 200. The forest never has really given me you have to have this many people. So I lowball it thinking I want to keep it smaller. I don't want to have 1,000 people out there. I personally like to get to know people when they come through. And I'm not going to be able to do that with, even 500 people, I don't think. And so at least with my 200 people, I can be like, oh, hey, Jack, hey, yeah, all of that. I love that. So this year I did a 200 cap. Last year I sold out the 50K and the 25K, and I had to add spots.
Mm-hmm.
So because I think I did it for 50 for each distance. This year I did it for 200 total. So we'll see. I mean, I'm at right now, I think at 50 something runners already. So I think it's more than we were at last year at this time.
Fantastic.
But if I sell out, I mean, I'm going to have a wait list, and I'll probably let you on, because not like 300 people are going to be on the wait list.
So 100K, 50K, and 25K.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the 100K, do you require any kind of prerequisite, or can I hop off the couch and sign up for the 100K?
You can hop off the couch, and I'm going to look at it and text my friends and be like, this guy's going to die.
Yeah, the beer guy's going to pick him up.
Yeah, I had two, I'm going to call them kids because they're early 20s, right? one signed up for the 100K. I couldn't find anything about him on Ultra Sign Up. It was his first Ultra race. And then another guy signed up for the 50K. And we had a mutual friend who was a PT. So I called him and I was like, who is this gym guy? And he's like, he's a road runner. He's only done like a half marathon. And I was like, oh, I'm 50K. It's fine. Well, he emails me like 2 weeks before the race and says, can I upgrade to the 100K? And I was like, okay, but you need to listen to me. All right. And I just gave him a whole bunch of advice. And when they showed up at the race, I took him under my wings. I was like, all right, guys, like, you have to listen to me. Like, else fail. Like, 13 miles, that's all you've done. And one of them actually finished, and he did it 2 years in a row.
That's awesome.
So I believe if you're going to put in the training and you're going to know what you look at what you're doing, come to the preview run, I think it can be successful. Until I have something major happen, I mean, there's no need to have a prerequisite. It's a 15-mile loop. We can kind of get you easily. You're not going to get lost. So, yeah, it's a good first-time race.
I like this. I like this story that you actually just shared. I think that speaks volumes about who you are as a race director, speak volumes for the community you're trying to establish in that area for the race, and just how you do want to see people branch out to the ultra world and be successful. It's kind of why we do what we do. And so it's really respectful to see that. And I think it's great. Appreciate it.
And that's why I want to stay small, so I can like get to know these people. I mean, they come back year after year and run it. That guy, Jim, he's coming back to do the 50K. And in fact, I paced him for his first 100-mile race on New Year's Eve. So I love it. I want to know my runners.
If you live there, you need to go to Becki's race because she will hate you.
Yeah, sure. Well, and it sounds like the perfect race to, if you're not sure, right? If you want to challenge yourself, but again, it's not technical. It is looped. You've got the aid stations. Sounds like you've got a great setup. Now, we did mention, and one of the things we haven't really talked about, 2,000 feet of gain per 15 miles is not flat. Now, I don't know. We're on the East Coast, and so we're used to flat. But talk about that. Is that something that catches people by surprise? Is it pretty rolling?
It absolutely does. People think forest road, and for some reason, flat is in their head. I've had many people come to me and say, I thought that was flat. I thought it was going to be flat. And I was like, I mean, we run it all the time here. Like, it's one of our favorite courses to run. And I'm just like, people that say it's flat just make me laugh because it's so gradual. And there's no like, I'm going to be hands on knees, climbing up. They're long, gradual climb. And they get you. And like, I walk all the hills. Now, we do have one hill that I call the demoralizer. And it's, now, if you're just running the 10K or the 25K, it's not a big deal. The 100K, I mean, it is. It's going to suck your soul. And it's only 0.3 of a mile. And it's only 131 bit of gain. But it goes from like 9% to, I think, 19% is the highest grade. But it sucks because it feels like it's never ending and it goes around a curve. So you think you're coming up to a flat spot and you look and you're like, what?
Did you say 19%?
She did say 19% grade.
That's pretty legit. Yeah, that's a soul sucker. The good news is you only got to do it 4 times, right? So you can count that down. So it's not an over and over and over, but
it's only 0.3 a mile and it's only 130 feet. You still got another 1,700 feet at other parts of the course that are slow and rapid.
But after that, it is downhill. So that's what people have to look forward to. After the climb, it's downhill to the finish.
But pay attention to that if you're listening. So don't just think.
And I have a sign that says, welcome to the demoralizer. So you'll know when you hit it.
I got one more question about the fact that people may DNF on the demoralizer now. If somebody is doing the 100K and they have completed 50K, some race directors allow them to drop down during the race. Others count it as a DNF. Do you have a preference here, or what do you end up doing for your race?
I'm a DNF.
Fine.
I think that it gives an easy way out, and I don't like that. I trained for 50K one time, and 50 milers were allowed to drop down mid-race to the 50 and it pushed me down. And I was upset. And I posted, my opinion on Facebook, and it wasn't horrible. I just said I didn't think it was fair that 50 mile they were allowed to drop down to 50K without penalty. And I got banned, and I'm not allowed to run those races anymore. And I was blocked. And so to me, if, these lower distances are training really hard, GPR or come in top 10 or whatever, I don't think it's fair when you've got these people that are training for 100K. They're like, I'm just going to go to 25K and then I'm going to blow all these people out of the water. So, yeah, it's deep.
I mean, that's a good answer. Like, we have race directors that go on both sides of the conversation. Some do and some don't. And it just depends on the race director preference. I love the fact that you have a reason. And that's the biggest thing is that, and most runners respect that. Like, as long as they know going in and they're like, well, this is the reason, cool. Everybody's cool,
Yeah.
And so I think there's not a right or wrong here. We like to ask, people are often curious about that. It's not a right or wrong. It's the race director's decision, and the runners are opting to participate in that. And I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's just an easy out, and I don't want an easy out.
Right.
I mean, I'm out there to finish 100K or 50K, and to finish it, come hell or high water.
Right. So this weekend,
Because,
when I
here's
get
the
up,
thing,
it's
it's
not a 50K. Sure.
on a loop course. Like, if you're doing the 100K and you come in 2 loops and you're just like, it's really hard to go back out. Yeah, that's the mental part.
Yeah.
Like, I want the mental toughness. Come on, you can do it. Do not quit.
I like it.
I love
Because it's easy to be like, well, I got the 50K medal. I'm good.
True. That's solid. I like the reason a lot.
100%. And again, I think for everybody listening, so we've talked about some great things. Race at night, it's got some elevation, also sounds like an absolute blast and a great course to go challenge yourself, especially if you're not sure how you're going to, like, that's one of the things I love about these types of races, right? Because sometimes point to point or remote or something like that, it isn't the best environment to be like, I don't know, but you're providing a great environment for somebody to say, hey, let's go see if I got what it takes to try this for the first time. Before we go, and for everybody listening, of course, we'll post all the links and give you all the information so that you can get to this. But Becki, we want to know from you, obviously, you said you want to keep this small because you love the community, you want to get to know people. What does it mean to you to have people show up on a Saturday evening to spend all night with you guys and run this race?
It makes me feel like, even though I'm new to this, that I'm doing something right. I'm doing something good for our community. I'm doing something good for the runners. And whether it's by word of mouth or they've run, the last 2 years, they're signing up again. I'm doing something right. Whether it's I'm putting on really good races or I've got really good descriptions on, I'll just sign up. Who knows? But it makes me feel good that I'm bringing people to this sport. And that's about it.
I love race directors when they answer this question in this type of way. Like, the reason we do this. Yeah. It's not, people are like, well, how much do you get out of this? I'm like, what do you mean? And then like,
Right.
Oh,
yeah. Like, it's their full-time job. I have another full-time job. I don't make anything. Everything I make goes back into the race, every single race. And I've got 4 races. So it all goes back into it. And it's a lot of work. And people are like, well, what do you get out of it? I'm like, I didn't realize how much I would enjoy seeing people come through every single loop. It is so exciting. And I don't think there's another race director that screams more than I do. And I think people can hear me from half a mile away. And I love that. And I can't talk the next day. And I just love it. I didn't think I'd love it as much as I do.
Awesome.
It's so good. And obviously the passion just pours out of you. But there's really not much more fulfilling than watching somebody complete something really, really hard. It's such a special moment. And as a race director, you get to see that up close. So I'm sure that's super cool.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
Look, we really appreciated this time. And if you're listening, here's what I would say is go check out the race, go check out what Becki's doing. Obviously, there's just so much fun to be had. Like I said, we'll post the links. And if this is your first time joining us or learning about us, shameless plug, right? Do the subscribe, tell your friends, and check out the rest of the podcast. We have a lot of amazing conversations with some amazing people. But Becki, just thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Nice to meet you guys. Maybe I'll come do the Hydra.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. All right. And to everybody else, we will talk soon. Guts.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.